You are listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. Thank you for downloading and subscribing. Coming to you virtually live from high atop the historic Raleigh building in beautiful downtown Raleigh. The NCF&B takes the listener behind the scenes to tell the stories of the people that contribute to the creation of the food and beverage community of North Carolina. And now, with food stuck in their teeth, it's Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And today on the podcast, we are getting picante, ladies and gentlemen. One of my favorite things to consume on this earth is hot sauce. And here to delve into the world of hot sauce is the owner of Shelby Spice out there in Shelby, North Carolina, Mr. Duncan Blount.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's great to have you come all the way out from Shelby, yes?
Yep, that's right. I drove in this morning. I love Raleigh.
Yeah. Where's Shelby again for us to know?
Shelby is west of Charlotte, and we're known for Earl Scruggs, the greatest banjo player who ever lived.
Earl
He's from Shelby.
That's right. You said you even gave a little mention to him on your logo?
That's right. Our logo for our hot sauce business is a train because it hits like a train, sings like a song, Shelby Spice. But if you look close, you'll see the bridge of the banjo there.
Yeah.
To kind of pay homage there to Earl Scruggs, who's so important to our community.
That's cool, man. Well, the music community in North Carolina is insane. There's like so much that happens here all the time, which is pretty cool. But we're not talking music. We're talking hot sauce.
That's right. Hot sauce is my passion, man. I mean, I can answer I feel like I could just talk for days about it. So you hit me with the questions and I will go deep into whatever you want.
Sure. Well, just for starters, what kind of, I guess, piqued my interest is you had sent us, or I guess you'd reached out to us, and then I said, well, send us some hot sauce. Let's figure this out. Let's vet it a little bit. But I think what was the most interesting aspect of it was your interest or your want to age and kind of compare your hot sauces to like bourbon or fine wine. Mm-hmm. So maybe kind of start there as to what is that connection and what do you mean by that?
Yeah. I think every industry goes through a growth where it hits that luxury point where you can have a craftsmanship. And the craftsmanship of hot sauce so far has been $4 bottles, $5 bottles. There's not a lot of love and energy put into those ingredients. And so think about the craft beer industry in the 90s, or think about bourbon back before Blanton's was around, right? There was no real idea of a $100 bottle. And my hope with Shelby Spice is to say, what if we put cost aside and made the best possible hot sauce you could make? What would that look like? And for me, that means premium vinegars. And here in the South, in North Carolina in particular, growing up, my grandma, it was mostly vinegar in any kind of spicy sauce. It was vinegar, baby. And vinegar is, in my recipes, generally between 25 to 35% of the bottle is vinegar. And most hot sauce is just dirt cheap, white distilled vinegar. But what if we did something different? And that's where I started playing with aging vinegars, especially in bourbon barrels. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So like your average grocery store hot sauce, and everybody has their name of them, you're saying it's 25% just average distilled white vinegar that they're mass producing or buying in mass and then putting it in as a base to their hot sauce.
Buying in mass. And the trick to vinegar is saying, what's that first ingredient that you start with? And if it's a premium ingredient, then it's going to be a premium vinegar. And then you start playing with the aging. And so it really goes back to those premium ingredients.
And when you say premium ingredient for vinegar, are we talking grapes?
My favorite vinegar, and this is interesting, and this is very, very familiar to Louisiana people, because this is Louisiana, is cane vinegar. So whenever you grow sugar cane and you distill it, it's just such a pure, straightforward, and also sweet aftertaste flavor that once you taste cane vinegar for the first time, you really don't want to go back to other vinegars. It's almost like kombucha. It's just so good. And that's really what I use for most of my recipes. The Philippines have really good cane vinegar, and so I ship out big pallets full of cane vinegar from the Philippines. And then we also have cane vinegar from Steen syrup in Louisiana. And so that's a farm where they grow their own sugar cane.
Okay.
And they make the best vinegar in America.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess it makes sense. I mean, when you were comparing it to wine, I mean, and Matt and I, we know wine pretty well, and obviously that's what I was thinking was like, are you using like really high-end wine-based vinegar that would go from there? But with sugar, that's also interesting as well. So, okay, so walk us through your process a little bit. You're finding this really good cane vinegar, but then what about everything? Like, okay, let me rephrase this a little bit. I understand what you mean when you say everything that you're going to put into this bottle needs to be kind of high end if you're going to in fact make something that's more luxury brand. Similar to like a cocktail, you can have really expensive vodka and really expensive Amaros and whatever you're going to do, and then you just put shitty ice in the glass, and that nullifies the beauty of the drink. That's why your ice program, and any bartender worth his salt or her salt knows that the ice program is just as important as anything else, because it's going to take up many times half the glass. So I guess in this scenario, there's like a similarity, little parallel there. But what about the rest of the ingredients, and where are you sourcing? How are you putting in? What else are you putting into your bottle?
Yeah, so I grew up on a family farm, and that's a big part of my brand is family farm grown peppers. So we have 6 different family farms here in North Carolina, mostly around Cleveland County where Shelby's at, and we get all of our peppers from these family farms. And so they're all local. Part of my dream is to really bottle North Carolina. I want to have an iconic North Carolina hot sauce. So it's locally grown peppers, premium vinegars, and really creative recipes, and that makes Shelby Spice. A little bit about my background when it comes to luxury events.
Yeah.
For the last 8 years, I've been running high-end wedding venues. In the last 2 years, I was in LA. I was running La Venta, which is an ocean view wedding venue, and we did very high-end catering. And I'll never forget walking into my first hot sauce store, like true small batch hot sauce, and I saw in a glass case a bottle of hot sauce for $150. And I said, what? I didn't know this was possible. And LA is kind of, in my opinion, the birthplace of pop culture. It kind of sets the scene for what's coming to the rest of the country. And
That's what they like to tell you. But yeah, sure.
And it gave me the idea. Think about cigars, right? No one bats an eye spending $30 on a really nice cigar. But 50 years ago, 100 years ago, that's pretty crazy. There's always a point. There's always a moment before the luxury expansion, before people start asking true craftsmanship questions.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we're at with the hot sauce industry.
You
I
need
think we're on
like
the
Drake
cusp.
to rap about it. I think that's like the truest form of
That'd be good.
bumping. Yeah.
Or have a rap battle with who's he up against now?
Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar. Yeah.
Forget Drake. Yeah, get Kendrick, because Kendrick really kind of.
Or have them both rap about their favorite hot sauces and then uplift the whole industry,
There
because
you
it's all contrived. There's a couple of things there to unpack. First thing, you said create the iconic North Carolina hot sauce. A lot of people would stop there and say, well, we already have Texas Pete. It's actually from North Carolina.
That's right. Not confusing at all.
Yeah. So what would you say to that question first?
I think there's mass produced, which is wonderful. I mean, as bourbon drinkers, we love Jim Beam. Jim Beam's great.
Yeah. I mean, I don't love Jim Beam, but I get your point.
In a pinch, it'll do.
We all start somewhere.
Sure.
And there's kind of a path, right? You like Jim Beam more when you're in college and you're just trying to drink to get drunk. But then something happens. There's nostalgia and passion. And as you grow as a connoisseur and as your taste buds grow as an adult, you start saying, what could be better? And for me, the quality of the peppers is huge, and the variety of peppers. There's over 50,000 pepper varieties on this planet. Most North Carolinians maybe 6.
Yeah.
But if you stop someone on the street, they would know 6 different peppers. But I'm trying to introduce a different variety of peppers while also showing that, hey, these are family farmers. That's kind of true North Carolina roots, right? We're an agricultural history here, and I want to lean into that and enjoy these.
So as our PR people would say, shout out to you, Jenny, at Trio Solutions, they would probably say, what you're creating is an iconic premium hot sauce.
Yes.
Just to label it correctly.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so the pepper thing, because I was reading that you don't use capsaicin peppers as much, and so explain to the naive what that means and what the peppers you're using, because my understanding is that's where you get the heat in hot sauce. But
So there's something called capsaicin oils.
okay,
And a lot of times you'll see hot sauce collectors turn the bottle over just like bourbon. You always look at that back. Is it produced by, bottled by?
Right.
And you're looking to see, are there oils added? Are there synthetic preservatives added? And a lot of folks look for all natural, oil-free hot sauce. So imagine you take a bunch of peppers and you synthesize it and you just get the spicy part, the capsaicin. It makes production a little bit easier, and you can make it a lot hotter, and it's a lot less of a craft, right? You're just throwing that spice in there to get a reaction, and it's not a culinary experience. It's a fear factor. It's what I call the prank hot sauce.
Okay.
And people start there, that's fine, but eventually you grow up and you say, I want that good spice.
yeah, it's like
They're going from Charmant method to method de Champenoise.
yeah, or it's like you're going from drinking Miami Pinot Noir and then start drinking Burgundy. Like, yeah, let's get real.
And watch out, you'll get the bends if you do that.
Yeah. Okay, so walk me through that, because like the average or store bought or mass produced hot sauce, so they're just are they taking the seeds from the peppers? Or are they breaking down the whole pepper? How does that work? Or is it a mixture?
North Carolina has the great Ed Curry. And of course, if you're in the Charlotte area, I mean,
Also, Stephen Curry, by the way, is from North Carolina.
That's true.
I think that's his father, right? A great NBA player.
Del Curry. Maybe Ed Curry was his uncle. I don't know.
And so whenever you walk into his hot sauce store, it's very exclusive, right? You walk in and you're not allowed to take pictures.
Wait, where is Ed Curry? Is this the one in L.A. you were talking about?
Fort Mill, which is south of Charlotte.
That's okay. We like them too.
He has a factory, and he's able to really produce oils. So he has something called Pepper X, which is the new spiciest pepper in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, bigger than like the Reaper and
That's
Ghost
right.
Pepper. Okay.
About twice as hot as the Reaper.
Pepper X is
the
we can't
new
come up with a name.
Right.
I think that's the dangerous sounding pepper. I think it's okay. Like Pepper
You think
X.
that's why they said it? Not because they're like, we don't have a name, so let's just for now call it Pepper X.
Yeah, it's like, like Wolverine, like what is he, X-Men? I don't know, something, who cares? All right.
But it's synthesizing, right? So
Yeah.
the difference is you're taking peppers and you're using the full pepper, which is the placenta, the seeds. That's really what gives the spice. That's what I do. The alternative is synthesizing and taking out just that chemical, the compounds.
Yeah.
And using that in like a little vial and dripping it in, which is just
like
not
if you're
as
having
natural.
I just had the ghost pepper jelly belly, right? Like the really, really, really spicy jelly bean. Mm-hmm. But I have to imagine that they're just taking the oil, like the ghost pepper oil, and throwing it in there. You're not putting a fresh, ghost pepper into production to make a jelly bean.
Exactly.
But in this scenario, you are taking a fresh ghost pepper and you're utilizing it in your bottle.
Yes. So after moving from LA, I was driving across the country and I said, I want to start this hot sauce brand. I want to create the iconic North Carolina hot sauce and
Iconic premium North Carolina hot sauce.
premium hot sauce. And because that's my dream, it comes with a prediction. And the prediction is that hot sauce will become collectible.
Yeah.
That hot sauce is going to grow just like bourbon, as a hobby. And people are going to have fridges full of hot sauce. And when you go to your friend's house, they're going to say, my man, you got to try this new hot sauce. That is the prediction that I'm making, because the hot sauce world really isn't like that right now. And I think it's getting closer.
I would say that you're on to something there.
Yeah.
Like, I think, if I go over to Max's house or my brother-in-law is a big, they're like, oh yeah, I just tried this new hot sauce. Yeah, it might not be collectible in the high-priced items, but there's definitely a lot of cool factor with try this new hot sauce I got.
And I would, I'm also from California and I've lived in LA for 15 years. And I think hot sauce is a huge deal out there. And there are a lot of hot sauce shops all over the place. And I think also just because of the Latino community and the Asian community that that factors into the culinary side of food far more. No offense, North Carolinians, but your idea of hot sauce is throw a little Tabasco or Texas Pete on it. It's but then North Carolina has the ghost pepper, or one of the hottest.
Yeah.
So I just think culturally, you're going to see a lot more of that spark up. And then we can't obviously not mention the elephant in the room. Hot Ones, the TV show, has done an exemplary job for highlighting hot sauce. I do feel like, Matt, we're gonna have to get into this hot sauce right now, and maybe it's gonna be like the reverse of Hot Ones, because we're the hosts and you're gonna give us the hot sauce, and then we're gonna have to ask questions as our mouths are burning.
It is the reverse. But you do bring up a good point, by the way, which is North Carolinians. I'm trying to ease all of my champions into trying hotter and hotter hot sauces, because most people do come with that Texas Pete expectation, and I have sauces for them. But you just grow that passion, you grow the love, and your heat tolerance grows. Yeah. But I brought some stuff for you guys today. I really did.
I want to try it. And while you're breaking those out, and you can use our fancy glassware for them, or however you suggest. But 2 questions come to mind. First of all, what were you seeking by going out to Los Angeles?
It was a great opportunity to run that wedding venue. I had I had a team of 6, and it's a historic building. It was the first building on the whole Palos Verdes Peninsula, the very first
That's what I was going to ask you. Palos Verdes. So for those that don't understand, that's like the South Bay, going beyond Hermosa and south of Manhattan.
Yep.
Very rich area. There's a lot of coinage in that spot, but it's a good place to have a wedding venue, because a lot of this is like where the Kardashians would get married,
But with Palos Verdes, you're still in Los Angeles County. You're not yet in Orange County,
correct.
Right?
Yeah. I think if you go over the hump, then you're into Long Beach.
You go a little bit further east, and then that's the last city in Los Angeles County is Long Beach.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is, you were saying with the mass-produced brands that they are creating a synthetic oil, so like they're taking out the compound, so they're doing that in a lab, I guess, because obviously anybody who's cut peppers, dealt with peppers, you know that like you don't touch your eyes, you don't touch your face, because there's oils on there that are creating the heat. So they're not just extracting those, they're actually they're like figuring out the chemical compound and then reproducing that synthetically in a lab.
They're extracting, so they still use peppers. And by the way, that's what I love about Texas Pete is they do use real peppers, and they're aged peppers. Texas Pete does age peppers.
Oh, nice.
And they do a great job, but it's about 1/10. They dilute it by about 1/10 to its original heat level. But
by using distilled white vinegar?
That's right. And also by their process of watering that pepper down, so it's kind of a mash, and the mash means that acidity has been added and that it's been aged.
Yeah. It's like we would say in the wine world, it's manipulated. Like you're using chemicals. You're not just taking grapes, crushing them, letting it ferment naturally, and then bottling it. Like
so,
maybe
I don't know. And most people don't realize how much post-production goes into wine production. Like some of the best European winemakers and such, there isn't a lot. They are doing it naturally.
Yeah, but we say the best wines in the world are not manipulated. I mean, that's not always true. Some that get the scores, they are manipulated. Especially that was of the trend in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. And when I say small batch hot sauce, that's part of what I'm talking about, because using the peppers, using the all natural, it's a smaller production experience. And just like the best wineries in Napa and Sonoma, they're usually smaller estates. And so it's a smaller process. And I wish when you looked on the back of a hot sauce bottle, it could say single pot batches. Oh, that would be my dream. Single pot. Because some people claim to be small batch, but
we have different dreams.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Single pot batches, but some people claim to be small batch, but it's made in massive quantities in Costa Rica and then shipped into North Carolina.
Yeah.
So the hope is, how can I show that this is real? This is me in a big old pot in a commercial kitchen, and it's me trying to make the best hot sauce possible. I brought this for you guys to try. We have a couple, but this one kind of represents. That's a Filipino cane vinegar, blackberries, and an aged reaper. I fermented that reaper for 8 weeks. And so the goal with this one was to give that good reaper heat and the sweet heat without overpowering. So it's about 70 grams reaper and about 900 grams blackberry.
Or should we just pour a little on
if you want to put some on your finger, I want you guys to enjoy that, and then we're going to taste some of the vinegar and really go deeper.
How, on a hotness scale, how hot is this going to be?
I would call this one a 6 or a 7. But the great thing about this capsaicinoid, the reaper lingers, baby. I mean, Ed Curry's a genius. There are different types of heats that affect different parts of your tongue. And the reaper heat is so delightful because it lingers for about 2 to 3 minutes on the back of my throat. But it affects everyone differently. But I love the lingering heat of this. This is a sweeter hot sauce. So imagine this in the morning with like eggs, sausage, chicken and waffles. This is a more of a jammy morning experience.
Oh yeah, there's heat, but it's not killing me.
No,
There's just
I love.
heat.
He caught me in the back, so I'm getting that like
Oh yeah.
coughing thing. But no, it's good heat, but it's flavor heat. It's not like whoa, knock you over.
Yeah.
You know, So that would be a 6.
I would call that a 6 on my scale for sure. And
I like this is more along the lines flavor wise of like the Worcestershire way. Would I be describing that right? Like, I mean, you said it, but it's more of like even though it's red in color, it's more of giving me that like malted brownish taste more than like a red pepper thing. Would you?
And I think you're really tasting beyond the blackberries, because most people just taste the blackberries first, but you're tasting something deeper.
I taste for a living, bro. I said to Sarah, because we had like a difference of opinion over something, and it was like, well, I get paid for my palate and you don't, so I'm right.
That palate payment, baby. Yes.
They weren't talking about food. He was just saying that arbitrarily.
Yeah. But sorry, you were saying that you're tasting something beyond the blackberries there.
Yes. So whenever you pick up a bottle of hot sauce, you want to look at the back, and a sweeter hot sauce, you can be okay with that, what I call the character element. And the character element in this is the blackberries. So that's the first ingredient. But when you have a hot sauce that's more of a pepper sauce, or it's a sauce that is highlighting the pepper flavor, you want that first ingredient to always be peppers. If that first ingredient is vinegar or water, it's in my opinion, it's less desirable, because the peppers are the expensive part. The peppers are the texture part. The flavor of the pepper is, I think, something to be highlighted. So this is one of my more unusual sauces.
Okay.
And the blackberry is just fun. It's very, very fun.
So why did you choose this to be your... I mean, I guess you just answered it. I'm answering my own question. It's one of your most unusual, so it's something very different than you would taste.
This is not like vinegar based, right? You were saying we're going to get into more vinegar style ones.
Yes.
This one was more the pepper. Kind of. Am I wrong to say that? Like it's more like pepper based as opposed to like with the vinegar?
No, you're saying that it's blackberry based, so this is more like a fruit based.
This is one of my sweeter hot sauces.
Okay, got it.
And whenever you look at the back of the bottle and you see, okay, cane vinegar, Carolina Reapers, that's a super hot. So there's kind of categories of peppers. Super hots, if you're making a pepper forward super hot sauce, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And so the key with super hots is balance. And I made over 12 batches of this recipe before I really felt comfortable with that ratio.
How many batches?
Reaper, 12 batches.
Okay.
And what I'm trying to do is get the level of the super hot to that character just right.
So is that blending in more of the blackberries then to balance it out? So
That's
it's the
right.
balance of the blackberries
That's right.
and the peppers.
I mean, and I tried to add garlic to this. I tried it with and without olive oil. I tried more peppers versus less peppers. And I think one thing that sets me apart as a brand is customer feedback. I'm at the farmer's market every single Saturday morning with a new sauce, and I'm asking for feedback. Do you like sauce A or sauce B more? And one of them has more garlic. One of them has more peppers.
By the way, just so we don't forget, and let's get this out, the plugs in the beginning. How does somebody get your hot sauce if they're already hooked and they're like, this guy's a hot sauce nerd. I want more of his
I'm
stuff.
a hot sauce nerd for sure. So, ShelbySpice.com. I can ship it straight to you. I ship out boxes every morning.
Okay.
ShelbySpice.com is the spot. But if you're on Instagram and you just want to learn about hot sauce and some of the philosophies I have about flavor, about character, about heat, and about how I make hot sauce, you can check out Shelby Hot Sauce on Instagram. Shelby.
Yeah, I'm seeing you've got a hot sauce subscription, which is pretty cool. And then, and I do love, and I hope we get there to talk about Fire Crotch hot sauce.
I love that.
Yeah, what's out there.
What I was going to ask, you were saying about looking at the back of the label. So, and I hate to, I don't mean to insult you by comparing yours to the big store brands, but it's just like, I think what a lot of people's reference point is.
Yeah.
So like, what would you see on the back of a Frank's Red Hot or like a Cholula?
You'll see a thickening agent, like xanthan gum, which isn't synthetic, but it's also, it's an additive that's there for reasons other than flavor, character, and heat. And for me, being in North Carolina, it's a blessing that vinegar is a preservative. So you get that pH around 3.5 or below, and it's shelf stable. And so it's like, if you can have the flavor and the practicality of the pH be the same, then don't use synthetic preservatives. Try not to. And if you have something like a pepper, which is just thick and delicious, why add a thickening agent? So my philosophy is a little bit different. It's just about being more pure, more natural, and really trying to make the sauce kind of like the way my great-grandma would make it if she was going to make it, rather than the mass-produced method. But you usually see vinegar first ingredient for most of those hot sauces, because again, they're diluting those peppers. They're usually a Tabasco or a cayenne pepper.
Okay, so really good base tip. Look for the ingredients to be either pepper or fruit as opposed to vinegar.
Yes, it's going to be nicer, and
more of a craft.
Yeah, and so this is my other hot sauce. This is my bestseller. It's called the Yes Ma'am, and this is red serrano peppers, which aren't hot.
Okay.
The red serrano is the first ingredient because that's, again, my character. So whenever I think character, I think, what do you remember? So think about wine. The first thing that hits you and the last thing you think about, that's the character. And for me, I wanted a serrano hot sauce because serranos are just so North Carolina. But to give it heat, I added a little bit of ghost pepper too. So a small bit of ghost pepper.
Yeah.
So that's the philosophy, is character before heat. How can you make it memorable and powerful?
You could also get Dennis Haysbert to endorse it.
with his deep voice.
Yeah.
What is his?
Because in Major League, his last name was Serrano.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah.
Come
But
on,
you know,
deep
like
cut, bud.
he was like he could barely swing a bat. Like in real life, Dennis Haysbert was like not a good baseball
He
player.
doesn't look like he can really swing a bat in the movie. I mean,
Yeah, they were like giving him shit because was it Tom Berenger's like the main star?
Yeah.
I heard him in some podcast or whatever. He's like, yeah, oddly enough, the guy that was like the biggest hitter could not swing a bat. He's like, couldn't throw, couldn't swing a bat. We're like, where'd you live? Like, how'd you grow up, man? How'd you not know how to throw a ball around?
Actors.
I will say this.
Actors.
Yeah, actors. Yeah, you lived in LA, yeah. Speaking of which, you remind me of, speaking of actors,
Oh. Yes.
the tall Zach from Silicon Valley.
Yes. Totally.
He's like their business manager. What's his name? Zach. Oh my God.
Well, while you look that up, can we taste or should we? Or what do you want us to taste next?
So
What would be the proper?
So I've told you my prediction for the future for hot sauce, that it's going to become collectible.
Yeah.
I am the first hot sauce business in North Carolina and in the country to have a nesting box for hot sauce.
That's cool.
This is my nesting box, which of course in the wine industry, everyone has a nesting box for their wine.
Oh yeah, Zach Woods.
Zach Woods. You know who I'm talking about?
Your cadence and your speech patterns.
I wish my jawline was that sharp, baby. But yeah.
Pretty good jawline, but yeah.
Yeah, and he's a tall guy. You're a tall dude. What are you, like 6'3"?
6'3", that's right.
Yeah.
Here it is. This is called the Seven Gables hot sauce. And I feel like you guys appreciate this because you guys know good wine. I had this designed, and look, it's got the little, that wood, baby. You pop it out. And this is the Seven Gables. And so trying to show quality on the outside and on the inside. This is a $42 bottle of hot sauce. This is my most expensive bottle.
Okay.
And so $42, if a couple of years ago, no one would pay that in North Carolina, but people are ordering this now from me.
That's awesome.
And it feels so good. It's like there are people who can taste and appreciate quality, and that's the biggest compliment to me is I put so much energy into this bottle, and people get it. Fresh green and red cayennes, California cayennes, and red and green makes that kind of nice, luxurious brown color, which is the bourbon feel I'm going for. And bourbon barrel-aged vinegar. Are you guys ready to try the vinegar?
Yeah, most definitely. I'll stall while you're grabbing that. I was pleasantly surprised when you did ship your hot sauces, your chili verde. Mm-hmm. Holy cow! Talk about I put hot sauce on every breakfast I eat. I don't care what it is. And I will say, even with the family, your chili verde, and we can get to that later, but it wasn't super hot, as you probably should be mild, I would say, at chili verde. But man, it just added such a depth of flavor that I was not ready for. I was like, oh damn, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It was done so well. So there's something to be said about what you're doing when it comes to this craft side of things.
Yeah.
It's really adding to the food, like to a level that I didn't expect.
And I think the greatest compliment I've ever gotten was, I can never go back to a store-bought hot sauce.
Yeah.
And to me, that means that they get it. They get the quality. And I like to imagine the first time I ever went to a brewery. So I was 21. We'd just been drinking Bud Lights in college, and I went to a brewery, Newgrass in Shelby, when I was visiting back home. And I was like, oh, I didn't know beer could taste this good. I just didn't know. And your eyes get big and your eyebrows almost fall off your forehead. And you're like, what is this? And I see that every day at the farmer's market. I see it at festivals that I go to. People try the sauce and they're just confused for a second. They're like, I didn't know.
What do you have them try the sauce on? Do you just put like those little tabs, or do you have a little cracker?
Crackers or spoons. So for gluten-free people, I have them try it on a spoon. And whenever I do tastings, I always use a metal spoon and kind of put it upside down on my tongue and just close my eyes. But for folks who are trying it, a nice, easy saltine cracker, I think is a great way to taste it.
Yeah.
Which brings up another good point. If you have a $42 bottle of hot sauce, what do you try it on? And I'm trying to create a new tradition, hot sauce neat. So imagine a flavor-free cracker, and I could sell those flavor-free crackers on my website and say, hey, enjoy this hot sauce for the flavor.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're real bougie like Drake, you can put it on all your food. But this is a premium product.
Right,
How
you
can
want
you
to enjoy that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's it's similar to bourbon neat versus ice, or God forbid adding Coke or something to it.
Yeah.
And so that's the idea, is how can we start focusing on the flavor of hot sauce?
I like it.
So the bouquet of this,
Yeah, it's wild.
like acetone, getting a little.
At first, but then you get the sweetness, because this is that sugarcane vinegar
that
you're talking about.
It's that pure.
It really
cane
comes
vinegar.
through.
And it's acidic. I mean, and when you taste it for the first time, you're like,
Oh, it's actually pretty delicious.
What is the sugar content of something like the residual sugar or something like that?
it's pretty high residual sugar.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't taste sweet at all. I'm just curious.
I mean, I remember being surprised whenever I first saw it. I think for a bottle of hot sauce with sugarcane like this, it's 5 calories for 1 teaspoon.
Mm-hmm.
So, the sugar still does come through. It's not like all the sugar's used to create that vinegar, like it's all eaten. So there is still sugar in it, but it's the aftertaste, because a lot of vinegars are just bitter and just it's unpleasant, whereas this is a pleasant vinegar.
Are you familiar with I use a lot of drinking vinegars, like these Korean drinking vinegars for non-alcoholic drinks when we're doing, because like a cocktail, like a mocktail, if you make one and you're just putting in really great ingredients but there's no liquor, so someone could just say, well, that's just like a nice juice that you've put together, it's like, it's not really a cocktail. So I like using these drinking vinegars just because alcohol in a sense gives you that bite in the back of your throat, just from the alcohol. And I like that vinegar replaces that bite a little bit to give the mocktail a little bit more heft to it.
And it wakes you up. There is a bodily experience, right?
Yeah.
We drink caffeine because it wakes us up chemically, but if you have a bite in your mouth, you're like, ooh, and you kind of get shivers all over your body.
Yeah.
And that's the joy of something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I'm salivating now, like a good wine. My mouth is like accepting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I like to say hot sauce is adding your vegetables to your meal. And that's kind of what I'm selling, right? So, we talk about the vinegar versus alcohol. A lot of folks are trying to collect things other than alcohol. And that was my life for almost 10 years, was collecting bourbon. And then you start realizing, I could collect other things that might be a little bit healthier for my liver.
Right.
Collect some vegetables, baby.
Yeah.
Collect some hot sauce. And so it's definitely fun to add your vegetables and enjoy it.
All right. I want to try another hot sauce.
Yeah.
You got it.
Where should we go next?
So we guys now have the flavor of that vinegar
Of
in
the
your mouth.
Seven Gables.
Yep, and I want you to try. I'm going to open up one of these premium bottles just for you guys.
I'm trying to find in my head, and I just can't recall. What's the Seven Gables reference?
Seven Gables was a book, by Hawthorne.
Yeah.
It's a type of architectural reference. So there is a house in Shelby that was built in 1929, and that house is known colloquially around Shelby as the Seven Gables.
Okay, so that's what this is named
and
after
you can
versus
see that
Hawthorne's
reference
book?
because I was trying to get to the point of history. History is beautiful. Aging is beautiful. Aged vinegar is beautiful. So that's part of the reference here.
Cool.
So whenever you get a bottle of hot sauce, you always shake it. You want it to be as consistent as you can. I wanted this hot sauce to feel significant, so I made it a bit thicker. So this,
How do you do? So you're not using thickening agents. So how are you doing that?
more peppers and slightly less vinegar while still managing the pH level.
Okay.
So I appreciate simplicity in ingredients. So on the back here, there's fresh green and red cowhorn cayennes. If it just says peppers, that's a red flag. You want it to say the variety of peppers on the back of that hot sauce bottle. Bourbon barrel-aged vinegar, sweet onions, and a little bit of Reaper for heat. So that's 4 ingredients.
Yeah.
I think it's impressive to make something beautiful with simplicity. So that's what I was going for with this Seven Gables hot sauce.
And so you find out your ratios in your mash, and then the peppers and onions are fermented before they go into the mash. Is that
Onions are fresh. I use
Onions are fresh? Okay.
sweet onions.
And then do you blend it? What is the process?
Yes. So whenever you make hot sauce, you are adding it into a pot. You're heating it for 10 to 15 minutes. You're managing and tracking that temperature, and you're doing a hot fill into the bottle. You're putting it upside down, which kills the germs hypothetically. And this is called a hot fill bottling method. And I got my acidification certificate here in North Carolina. And then you register the recipe with the FDA through your state authority. So for us, it's North Carolina State University. And so, I make it in big pots, man. It's single pot. And so if you look at the back of the bottle, I decided to add that phrase. I'm going to be the first one.
Single pot, man. You heard it here first on the NCFB.
Single pot. Welcome to Single Pot. Produced, processed, and bottled in single pot batches by Shelby Spice.
Yeah, so it's like the bourbon equivalent would be like single barrel, right? Or copper pot distilled and some of the gins and small batch. Yeah, but this is more than small batch. This is single pot.
Single pot, my man.
Yeah. But like the pot, how big?
All right.
How big?
Seven Gables.
If you guys want to pass that around, dude.
All right.
And again, it's complexity using simple ingredients. How do you do it? That's the Seven Gables hot sauce by Shelby Spice.
There is a little theater into your whole thing. I've seen it both on your website and but I like it. I mean, you add your personality into what you're doing.
Thank you.
And you're not making it stuffy. It's not silly by any means, but it definitely has like a charm to it, and I appreciate that.
And I think for me, part of it is the metaphor of spice. If I can be spicy as a person, if you can be spicy as a person, it's being yourself. And I want peppers to be themselves. I want hot sauce to be spicy. I want to be spicy. So I'm trying to kind of show that metaphor there.
So how hot is this one on a scale?
I would call this less hot. I'd call this a 5. I'm trying to appeal to a nice big demographic. So I'd give this one a 5.
Yeah, this one is delicious, but it is not like spicy. You know, it has some heat, and it definitely would do well if you put this. I mean, I think we're probably most commonly throw this like on a taco, or you put this on some barbecue.
Yeah. If Drake had a taco party, I'd want him to put this on his tacos for sure.
But also, just for those that maybe are spice averse, this would be hot.
Yeah.
Like you and I maybe have a threshold for heat, but I think for the average,
comparative to what we just tried, I would say this is like 50% in the heat from the first one.
And Matt has a good point. It's my target demographic are hot sauce people.
Hot sauce people,
so it's a 5 for hot sauce people. I should have led with that. This is a 5 for hot sauce collectors. Yeah.
It's kind of a different scale for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's delicious, and you get a little bit more of the actual crunchiness, like from the flakes or the actual peppers in there. Like you can taste it. But that's really tasty.
Do you put Scoville units on your bottle, or do you go through that process?
It costs some money to do that. Usually I have to send it to university, and it takes some time and some money. I decided just to do estimates. And so when you know the peppers and you know how many peppers you're adding, that's usually enough. So, I mean, I would guess that's 60,000 Scoville.
Okay. Yeah. And then the one we tried earlier?
Yeah, I would say it's probably closer to 80,000 Scoville or so.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say it's pretty high. Growing up with my mom, she absolutely loves heat, like hot sauce. She would be the same person that wherever we'd go out to dinner, she would always bring a little Ziploc with a jalapeno in her purse. And like, I mean, she everywhere. And then as time went on, the jalapenos were just not good enough. You know, we'd be eating Indian food or so, and she just crunch it, just eating it raw. And at some point, she's like, I've moved on, and now I'm using habaneros. Like, Mom, you're just eating habanero raw?
That's a high tolerance.
Yeah. And my buddies in high school, when we finally got into hot sauce, because I think there is like a rite of passage between, just like a machismo thing where it's like, bro, you see if you could try that, man. Could you handle it? Could you handle it? Dave's Insanity sauce comes to mind. You ever had Dave's Insanity?
No.
Bunkers.
You've had it, right? Yeah. I think it's in like the million Scoville unit or whatever.
It's that pain level that's just beyond.
Yeah. And my friends and my buddies knew my mom had this high tolerance for hot sauce, and so they wanted to mess with her, and we had a bottle of Dave's Insanity. It's the same size bottle that you have here. And they poured the whole thing out into a little dish, and we had corn chips right there, or tortilla chips. And they're like, Mr. Hill, try this new salsa. It's pretty hot, But like, let it be known, if you put a dab like what we just did on your tongue with Dave's Insanity, you're on fire.
Yeah.
We've all seen Conan O'Brien on Hot Ones. Like, you're that. It's over the top. My mom took a chip. She dipped it like it was salsa. Like, she got a big amount. Eats it. She was like, oh, it's spicy. That's pretty good. She's like, and then went back and got another one and just ate a second one. And I'm like, Mom, like, this is what you're eating. And we showed her. We thought we were going to get her. And she's like, no, it's good kick. I like that. It's good. I'm like, no one should be able to have.
What was her stomach like the next day?
Oh, I do not want to know. But
it brings up a good point about tolerance, though, because the higher your tolerance, the more different your culinary experience is, because there's a depth that's missing. So if you have like a taco with no heat, you're like, this is bland.
Yeah.
It's almost like taking a two-dimensional circle and making it into a sphere. You need heat as a hot sauce person to have a fully enjoyable experience. There's just no depth without heat. That's almost an addiction.
Yeah, but your tolerance just goes out the window. It's like you couldn't get drunk anymore at some point, right? Like you just would never.
I've heard this with the Top Chef judges, not from the two recent people we had on the show. By the way, props to Savannah Miller for taking it to the final.
Yeah,
top 3. And
nice.
was awesome. She was on the show. Go check it out if you guys haven't seen it. And then Manny Barea, who just opened up Jaguar Bolero and was at Bubbles and Brisket, he was like top 5 or 6, top 5, I think. So they both did really well. They did not say this, but I've talked to other people that have been previous guests on Top Chef or contestants, and they're like, the judges, man, all you got to do is just make it overly salty, overly sweet, overly acidic, like punch, because their palates are so blown out and all that. And I'm like, well, I think they're just looking for intense flavor and like the next thing. They're like, just overdo it. You can't be subtle on the show. You have to like smack them in the face with flavors.
And that's art, like there's bland art and then there's powerful pop art. And I think that's what people look for. And that's kind of the same in the food world. It's like, how can you be different? How can you stand out?
It's like when Robert Parker was at his heyday and he was known for giving high alcohol, high sugar level wines, big scores, because when you're tasting hundreds of wines in a day, in blind tasting or not, what are you going to rank highest? The ones that stand out, that are the most bold in flavor, whether it's balanced or not, they're the ones that stick out in your memory.
So. And unfortunately, that led to a bunch of winemakers making Parker-esque wines, which in today's world doesn't really fly. Like, we've kind of poo-pooed that entire
the pendulum, thanks to guys like John Bonet, have swung back to more about technique and farming subtlety. and subtlety. Yeah.
Which there's a through line with your hot sauce,
Absolutely.
Because you're not just trying to kick our ass with heat. And you're trying to understand the subtleties where you're getting all these nuanced flavors. So I appreciate it. Your approach for making this is like what a modern craft winemaker would do today.
Yeah, you're starting with the ingredients, which is the peppers and the different peppers, and that's what. This might not be directly related to what you do, but I think people are wondering, what if? And I don't know if your friends had a backup plan for Rita Trujillo over there, but let's say somebody tries one of the spices and it's way too hot for them and they get the whole bodies and the sweats and the whole thing. What is the best way? Because I know it's not water. People are like, oh, I need some water, but you don't drink water. Like, do you have a recommendation for that?
I learned this from Ed Curry, and he said it's citrus. So it's that acidity that will help take it off the tongue, take it off the throat. So lemon
Suck on a
juice,
lemon.
lime juice, that actually helps more. People think it's milk because of the fat particles, but he said milk is more likely to make you puke if you drink too much of it. So, so that's kind of the new professional recommendation is lime juice.
Okay. Yeah, I just watched the Shane
lime
Gillis.
over lemon.
I think lime is what I've been doing. I guess I haven't done it. Lime is more enjoyable for me, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little sweeter, less intense. Shane Gillis, on his most recent episode of Hot Ones, was like downing milk. He probably drank like a half gallon or a liter. And Sean of Hot Ones was like, you might want to ease back on the milk.
Yeah.
He's like, it kind of like soothes for a moment, but it really doesn't help. And he's like, and then there's the whole curdling factor that's going to happen in your gut with the milk and all the vinegar and all the hot, he's like, so it might be worse for you in the end. And I mean, in the end,
Yeah.
He's got to be an expert.
bad idea. Check that episode out.
So imagine you see me at the farmer's market. I'm this crazy-haired guy just kind of standing there with a little red booth. I want to treat it like we're in Napa. And
Right.
I'm taking you on a flavor journey, baby.
Yeah.
and my philosophy is the best wine in the world, the best hot sauce in the world is actually your favorite. So let's work together to find your favorite. And so I'll take people on a little flavor journey. I'll start from least hot and go up. And I'm asking things like, is that too hot for you? What do you like about that? And I treat myself like I'm a consultant, like I'm trying to help you find the best hot sauce. And that's my approach. And because I do that, I learn what's most popular and what people like versus what they don't like, which I think in turn makes my hot sauce even better. It's just the feedback. It's huge.
Yeah, you have financial consultants, and then you talk to Duncan Blount, the flavor consultant.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good, Duncan Blount could be like an attorney at law, but also a flavor consultant.
Flavor consultant.
Yeah.
Flavor consultant at law.
All right. Well, are there other things we should try?
Is there one more we should try before?
I've got one more. This is my flagship, and the red serrano flavor is a flavor that all North Carolinians know. It's the second most grown pepper in North Carolina, and this is my goal, was to try to create North Carolina flavor in a bottle. So I want you guys to try my flagship hot sauce. This is my biggest seller. This is called the Yes Ma'am.
Yes, man.
And it'll straighten your back and make you say yes ma'am.
By the way,
is there like a family component? You said it's family based, so like how much does your family get involved with this process?
It's definitely, so I have very young kids, and my mom has her own business. My dad does his own thing. He's a consultant in Hickory. So when it comes to family, I think it's about the origin story. Thinking about the farming experience, thinking about my grandma Deaver in Morehead City growing peppers and putting it in a big bottle of vinegar and shaking it up and just keeping it on the table. So I think
You have a grandma with the last name Deaver?
Deaver, Grandma Deaver.
I have a Deaver in my family.
Oh, yeah?
From North Carolina.
Oh man, the good history, man. There's history there.
There's like a bunch of Deavers in like the Asheville. What's that? Buncombe County. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of Deavers out there. That's like my dad's mom's grandparents.
And I think family history is so valuable, and knowing your history, knowing where you come from.
Yeah.
We have a newborn at home, and we named her Penelope Lorena, and Lorena is one of my family members. And part of naming hot sauce is like, who do I want to give a homage to? Who do I want to represent? Who do I want to thank? So anyway, naming is a huge part of my life, and I was a literature major, so I think about names all the time. We talk about that.
yes, ma'am.
This
is bursting with flavor.
Yeah.
Not hot. I mean, very subtle heat.
Yeah.
But this is
garlic,
delicious.
kind of, they get like the onion and the garlic kind of coming through. But it's savory, but that's delicious.
Like a smoked tomato note, you know, like that smokiness in a way without
that's
heat.
the Serrano. It's just a special flavor, a little grassy. So that's a $14 bottle. And the goal was to create an everyday premium hot sauce that could replace a Texas Pete, that could replace a Tabasco. And that's the dream. And I tell people sometimes, I'm like, don't taste it if you don't want to like change your hot sauce budget for your life, because you're going to want something like this instead of a Texas Pete.
Yeah. And this is, what is this? 140 or about 150 milliliters is the size of this bottle.
Traditional woozy.
So that would be like less than, in wine terms, that would be less than a glass of wine. So it'd be like 5 ounces, something like that. But
are you planning to drink the whole thing right now? Is that what we're saying?
I might. It's pretty delicious.
I mean, it's awesome. Now, what I'm curious about is the aging and the ageability of this. Your business, you've been doing this since 2015, I believe. Is that right?
Been making hot sauce personally since 2015, and last year was the year. Moving back from LA, I said, I'm going all in, and here's my goals, here's my business plan. I'm putting myself out there. And so I'm still in my first year. Like I made my first sale October 1st of last year was my first sale, because there's a big ramp up period, right? And so October 1st was my first time I made money.
Good for you.
So you don't have a reference point about what these are going to be like when it comes to ageability. 2 questions though. You said shelf stable, but is that once it's been open and oxygen gets in?
Yes.
How shelf stable are they? And then talk to us about the ageability of these and how will that mature in flavor.
Hot sauce will always survive longer, taste better if you keep it in the fridge. So I tell everybody, once it's open, just keep it in the fridge. But this, from my testing and from the state, is good for up to 2 years because it's so acidic. So and most hot sauces are a year to 2 years. So you could just keep it on the shelf, and it's safe and good to go as long as there's not direct sunlight to damage the flavor.
Yeah. I don't have a sunlight. I don't have a window in my refrigerator, so that'll help.
yeah.
But so what's the aspect of aging these in general? Will the flavor evolve? Do you think? I mean, that's the idea. Like if you could put one of these on a shelf in a temperature controlled room for 10 years, do you think that the vinegars and just the oak aging and all that would do something to the flavor profile?
It will do something. But the answer is I don't know if it's better or worse. A lot of studies have shown that some hot sauces can last up to 10 years, but not really past 10 years. So there's definitely like a peak point of flavor. But I like that idea you have, because maybe I could make a batch, put aside 20 bottles, and just maybe once a year I taste them and I try to really take notes about what I'm tasting and see if there's changes in there.
Well, not every wine is necessarily like an ageable wine, and a lot of times that has a lot to do with the acidity and the structure, right? The acid that's in it. So if you have enough acid, if it's a high acid wine, they tend to age better over the time because that acid kind of cools down, mellows out, and many times like then the fruit kind of comes forward a little bit. But if you have like a more intense wine at some point, it could probably last long. I don't know, Matt, speak to that a little bit more.
Exactly what you said. Yeah.
Okay.
Higher acid wines tend to age better.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's why like Burgundy or Bordeaux, those are
Barolo.
super high acid. Yeah, Barolo.
Yeah.
They'll do well, but like you probably don't want to age your rosé that you just got, like your California rosé from 2022. You're going to drink that now.
Yeah.
Like you probably should have drank that last year.
So the more peppers, and peppers are not naturally acidic. So it is an acidified food because you have to add acid to it. So if it was a very pepper forward sauce, hypothetically, it might not age well because there's less acid. But maybe if I call them my looser sauces, like this is kind of loose, maybe I can make a really loose sauce that's more vinegar forward, and that might age a little bit better because it's more acidic and it's less chunky. I mean, I'm imagining like the chunkiness of the peppers aging.
Probably not good.
Yeah.
But I guess since you're testing pH levels, so the lower the pH levels, the probably longer ageability.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had going back to episode 6, and now we're on like episode 496. So just as a reference, with Gary Crunkleton, we were talking about ageable liquor. Remember we were talking about?
Yeah. Well, he wrote that bill about ageable liquors.
Yeah, so that we could buy aged liquors like that were already shelf stable, store bought like bottles, not liquor that's been in a barrel for a long time, but like final product. I think he had like Wild Turkey or so was like a really good, or Old Forester. These are like really good aged ones. And I have a friend that lives locally that collects these as well. And so like I've tried whiskey from 1922, right, when you were supposed to make it, like it was all prohibition type stuff, and it was like on the shelf and it was like effectively 100 years old. And we tried it. It didn't taste anything different, I would say. Like it's not like, oh, this is a better whiskey. The difference was when they made it then, there was no such thing as GMOs or any type of preservative. So it was just made as natural as possible. So when you try it, you're like, oh, this feels really clean. Like this feels like just pure whiskey. So I don't know, but like, but it's liquor, so it doesn't really change.
Yeah. So theoretically, but it has to at some point. I mean, it gets oxygen in it, and that just has to change the compound.
Some of the bottles looked a little bit more pale than like a new bottle of Old Forester, but the flavor was still really intense. So I don't know, but yeah, we have to let's do our follow-up episode in 10 years.
I like that.
And we'll
I want to connect him with Changing Tide Oyster Co. to incorporate some of the hot sauce in his mignonettes and stuff like that, because
like luxury on luxury. Yeah.
Well, I did bring a gallon of my Yes Ma'am with me to give to a restaurant here in Raleigh. So I was hoping for some ideas for you guys, because I'm always networking and just giving gallons. That's part of my marketing strategy with restaurants. Here's a gallon of sauce. Please use it.
Well, I mean, obviously you have St. Rock, which specializes in oysters, so they would be one. But Madre would also be a good. They would do something fun with it.
Aja could do well with it.
Yeah.
We'll help you find a good home for that, because it's going to be tremendous.
Yeah. This has been great.
Yeah, this is fun. I love when someone gets passionate about something and like really crafts into it and like kind of geeks out. And I love your passion for what you're doing here, because you realize like, oh yeah, you're making a really high quality product, and it didn't come from just, I don't know, you're just like, let's make a hot sauce. Who cares? Like, no. You had some specific intention, and it looks like you've done your research and you've really like figured it out. So thank you for reaching out to us. And I mean, that goes for anybody, right? If you want to be on the show and you've got a compelling story and you're doing something that's unique, by all means, reach out. Hit us up at our website.
But also, be a true expert like this guy. Like, you are a genuine. A lot of people call themselves experts in their field, and they know a little bit. You genuinely know your shit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What
I've been
bad
working
saying
at
is
it.
don't waste our fucking time.
Yeah. Know your shit.
Yeah, and you did not waste our time, Duncan. So we appreciate it. Again, for everybody else, how do we find your stuff?
I make wild videos about hot sauce on Instagram. Check out @Shelby Hot Sauce, and that is my Shelby Spice Instagram. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, for all of you out there, go to shelbyspice.com and you will buy some and you will eat extremely merrily.
Thank you. You guys, this was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks, Duncan.
Thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. By rating us online, you're helping others to discover our show. Follow us on all platforms at NCFB Pod.